What's up, everybody? My name is Bryce Toohey, and welcome to the first episode of Toohey Talk Show. Listen, I honestly have no idea kind of what's going to happen here. It's going to be a lot of fun, though, and I'm really excited. It's kind of it's going to be like a weekly installment of really not just trading. That's kind of what I wanted to get out of this, right? Like, there's so much more than outside of the small cap market that I'm trying to learn, and I want to bring on guests that can help teach me, help teach you. For those of you that used to follow me probably well before I was even a part of Stocks Trade community, Matt Monaco and I, who's way over out yonder somewhere in the office, we had a podcast called Beyond the PDT, and our goal was to kind of not only help ourselves learn from successful traders, but to also help others learn. And that's why we did it in the form of a podcast. And I wanted to do this a little bit differently, where it's almost more of a talk show, right? We're going to bring on guests, give my opinion, give theirs, kind of just get to, just talk the talk and see what we get out of it. Hopefully we can learn a bit. And, if not, it'll be a fun talk nonetheless. You'll get to meet a lot of new people. But for today's first episode, I'm actually bringing on some very familiar faces to the Stocks Trade community. We're going to have Jack Kellogg, Kyle Williams, and Mariana Hinckley joining us just to kind of talk a bit in, not only we'll talk a little bit of stocks and whatnot, but, Kyle has been very, very actively bullish on cryptocurrency. And right now, the market's in a very unstable place. We have a whole lot of the Russia-Ukraine stuff going on. And that has made, the overall stock market a bit iffy. And yet Kyle is still extremely bullish on cryptocurrency. I know even Jack, and I believe Mari, I could be wrong on Mari, but I know Jack was doing really well with some previously hot altcoin plays, which essentially are, I won't use too derogatory a language, but sketchy. They're almost like the penny stocks of cryptocurrency. And when they get hot, they get really, really hot. Shiba was, I think, the one that Kellogg made a lot of money on a couple months ago. And so I think it'll be really cool to kind of get their opinions on cryptocurrency. I get to learn a little bit too, because I'm trying to get into it, right? Like, not necessarily actively trading crypto, but I do want to have a better understanding of not only, I guess, like what crypto, I understand what crypto is, but I'd love to learn the more practical use of cryptocurrency in the future, as well as talk some NFTs and whatnot today. And I'd love to actually in the future have some more people on that are very experienced in the NFT space. I think it's, obviously it's a newer space. It's a lot of people are, saying it's a bubble and whatnot, but everyone was saying crypto was a bubble in 2017 too. And now here we are back over all-time highs. So I personally do believe there's technology in the NFT world that could very well be practical in the next 10, 20 years, especially if we move towards a society that's very embracing of cryptocurrency, very embracing of this new online currency that's a little bit more decentralized than the standard dollar. Let's turn that volume down for now. So yeah, that's kind of today's topic is going to be cryptocurrency, and a little bit too, obviously, guys. I mean, we're not stupid, right? There's a lot going on with this whole Russia-Ukraine stuff. And I think it's really important that does have an impact on not just the stock market, right? I mean, we saw the stock market almost break under $400 just a day ago. I'm recording this on Friday. On Thursday, pre-market, it was down at like 410, the SPY, and it did bounce. So I think we're up to like 440 today, which is pretty crazy, pretty cool, really great bounce. But that is something that's going to affect every single asset class, real estate, even cryptocurrency, the stock market, basically anything. I mean, it's going to lead to higher prices in gasoline. So these are things that I think are really important and hopefully also useful to you guys. But without further ado, with all that being said, I'm going to bring on our guests. Guys, this is Jack, Kyle, and Mari. I know you've all seen their beautiful faces before. Thank you guys for joining the first episode of the Toohey Talk Show. Now, I was just explaining before you guys hopped in. Today, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about, there's so much going on outside of just the stock market right now in terms of, I was talking about especially how Kyle has been very bullish on cryptocurrency for a long time now. And I assume, Kyle, you still are pretty bullish on crypto in the future, right?
Yeah, totally. The market's been super tough for a lot of traders in the last, 2-3 months. It's looking better, so we'll see if that continues and that chain comes back to, I wouldn't say normal, but speeds up. But otherwise, yeah, I've been still watching crypto. I'm very bullish on it. I've owned Bitcoin and Ethereum since 2016. I'm still in it now. In many ways, I'm still trying to make more money from stock trading to buy more crypto. But yeah, it's such a volatile market, so much more volatile than the stock market. It's a much more affected, like the way the SPY is affected. Like lately, Bitcoin's been following the SPY because there's so many geopolitical events, whether it be Ukraine and Russia, whether it be Canada, so many things that are changing how the crypto market's moving, and it's making it a bumpy ride. But no, yeah, it definitely doesn't change how I feel about it long term. It's definitely very bullish long term. So
sweet. And I'd actually love to hear Jack and Mari, your guys' opinion on crypto long term. And I was also mentioning, Jack, I know you had a great trade on Shiba. And I know it's traded more like a trade than it was an investment, I hope. But I'd like to hear your guys' opinions on crypto too, just kind of like your long term view on it, whether or not you're in a position.
Go ahead, Mari.
I guess I can talk first. I kind of feel like crypto has been kind of like on the back burner, and I feel like everybody's trying to get the whole world kind of technologically based. And I do feel like it could be kind of like the next big thing just because it's all crypto and it's all in the internet. So it's almost, I kind of related like the cars basically. It's from like normal cars now, everything is electric, kind of like the same thing from the dollar has lost its value since whenever it came out, and now it's maybe worth 1% of what it used to be. So I feel like the same goes with the car industry. It's like cars now are all going to be electric, and I feel like the same thing is with the dollar. The dollar will lose its value, and then suddenly it's going to be a lot more technologically advanced just because people are trying to look for what's the next big thing, what's more technologically advanced for everybody, and the internet is basically the best place. So that's what I feel about crypto.
Awesome. And Jack, what about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been an observer of cryptocurrencies for, like 4 or 5 years now. And I've seen them go through their cycles. And a lot of stuff is definitely being put into place with the metaverse, Web3, all of these altcoins coming out. And it definitely seems like it's getting more and more prevalent. And a lot more people are talking about it now than versus in 2017. So in another 4 years, I bet it will be even more popular. Although I think that while the SPY and the market are kind of having these dips, the Bitcoin, it does act like a speculative growth stock and not really like an asset class where you'll see gold go up when the market goes down because people buy that in fear. Whereas when the market goes down, so does Bitcoin and other cryptos because it's more speculation for now until I'm sure Kyle will know more about this, but for my opinion, like we need to see like more like government regulations and more people accepting Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, etc. And for it to really become like super, super legit. And then I think Bitcoin and all these other cryptocurrencies will act more as an asset class rather than acting like a speculative growth stock and not dipping when the SPY goes down. And Shiba, yeah, that was probably my best crypto trade. It definitely was my best crypto trade. And I had a few other trades on JSMY and NU and a couple others, but Shiba was just a classic penny stocking framework pattern. And it was a great supernova. It was a great price, had the hype behind it. And also like since Dogecoin was so big last summer, I think it was last summer when it really exploded, I knew there would be another one and you just had to wait, and Shiba was the one.
No, that was a fantastic trade, and that was a perfect example. I mean, that was just a beautiful pattern. Now, you brought up something that I think is extremely interesting, and that I'm sure a lot of people are probably questioning themselves after hearing that. Is like you're saying that you actually think, in order for cryptocurrency to become a bit more stable, less volatile, a traditional asset class, it actually needs more regulation. But doesn't that kind of go against the point of a decentralized currency? Is regulation? But I completely agree. I think in order for it to stabilize, be probably a little less volatile in a traditional asset class, it does need regulation. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on how you could see that working, and still maintaining the true values that cryptocurrency brings to the table over the traditional dollar.
Yeah, this is a great topic. And I know the first majority of people, when they hear the word regulation, goes everything against why crypto's alive, right? To have responsibility of your own money, no government or middleman can control it. And that is still the case. I think it depends on what kind of regulation takes place. For example, like a bill is being processed to actually put in place that crypto stays the way it is in the terms of, right, it's your money, no one can control it, like you can own your own wallets. So that's like a regulation putting in place to defend that, like that freedom. So in that way, it's positive. And another way that regulation needs to happen in order to have crypto become more adopted is in the sense that everyone's talking about how like institutional money is coming into crypto. Institutional, big money, massive multi-billion, if not trillion-dollar institutions can't come into crypto unless there is some kind of highway, some legal highway for them to come in. Because if there's not, they can't risk losing millions, if not billions of dollars to something they don't understand or they don't feel safe in. So in many ways, there has to be regulation, at least in the country that they're dealing with, to allow them to come on in a safe way. Because once that's in place, then they're going to feel comfortable buying. Then they're going to feel comfortable having it on their balance sheet or in their investment portfolio. And again, for that to happen, it's not like it's not going to become undecentralized or centralized. It's just making, kind of not laws, but just outlines in place of like, okay, if this happens with crypto, what do we do under the eyes of the law? It's not like the government's trying to put in place of like, you can't hold it, we have to hold it, et cetera, stuff like that. So it's about how regulation goes about it, or what kind of regulation comes into play, not the, overlooking like we control everything kind of regulation. So.
Gotcha. And Mari, Jack, do y'all feel the same way?
I wouldn't have known how to answer that question. I think Todd did a really good job at explaining it. So I'll just go ahead and take the agree statement.
We believe in you.
we placed the trust in Kyle. Now,
All right.
So then this is kind of where my brain goes when I start hearing something like that, right? Is obviously one of the big questions, and I've seen so much of this on Twitter, even on the news, mainstream news, is crypto is a Ponzi scheme, right? Like it's a whatever. It requires more people to buy in order for the price to go higher. Now, because there's nothing like technically backing cryptocurrency, but it's weird to me, right? I mean, in the end of the day, yeah, gold backs the dollar, but when you can, I mean, how much money did we print last year as the US? What, $6 trillion? I don't think we mined $6 trillion worth of gold. You know what I'm saying? So it's like where do you guys stand on that, right? Because I know Bitcoin, there's a finite amount of Bitcoin, right? There cannot be more or a certain amount created. There's something along those lines, correct?
Mm-hmm. Only 21 million Bitcoin ever.
21 million Bitcoin, right? So there is a limited supply. But then, and where I'm going from that, where I'm going with that is like the weird difference I see between like, because a lot of times people trade crypto the same way a lot of people trade different currency pairs, with Forex.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird because in a sense, it's almost like crypto is a mixture between a currency and an equity or an asset class like equities, right? Where I cannot go create another currency, yet I can go create an altcoin, right? That acts as a currency.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird though. I can't go create something that, well, I guess I probably could go create something that rivals, the dollar, but it's not going to have any practicality. Nobody's going to use it. So do you think, is there any value in altcoins long-term? I'm not saying is Doge going to go to 1 million? That's not what I'm trying to get at here, but do you guys see any long-term value in these altcoins that really anyone you and I could create? Are there any that have future potential? I'd love to hear all your guys' opinions on this.
So that's kind of when you bring that up of like anyone can create an altcoin. That's also what I think of in terms of regulation. Again, not to be controlling, but to be protective of people. To make sure a Smo Joe doesn't make this currency, and it's just this made up thing, right? It not necessarily have to be backed by anything, but to remove the idea of getting scammed or the idea or the concept of just creating something out of thin air, right? It has to have a little bit of utility behind it, a use case. So for example, like, okay, well, what if it's an altcoin that's created by someone legitimate? They've gone through all the regulatory like things to make it safe. It's real. It's not some scam. It's not some Ponzi scheme. Right. Does it have value? And for the same reason you just mentioned, Bryce, of like, you see crypto as almost like Forex currencies mixed with stocks. That's exactly how I think about it, right? You can't go into the Apple store and spend your Apple shares to buy an iPhone, right? But Warren Buffett, when he wants to donate to a charity, he's donated shares to a charity, and then the charity can do what they want with those shares. So in many ways, crypto is like that, where you can have an altcoin that represents a company. Like maybe this company is trying to solve this real world problem with crypto, and they are represented in an altcoin. And just happen, because it's an altcoin, it happens to also be spendable as a currency. And in some ways, altcoins do that. Is like, oh, if you want to do business with us, you have to transact in our altcoin. And it's very simple as just making if you're trading from, the British pound to the US dollar, it's a simple transaction. It takes a couple of seconds, with the internet and technology. It's just very easy. Oh, you want to deal with our company that deals in this altcoin? Just make this simple transaction. We'll solve your real world problem, and it's done. So that's kind of how I view it, and what altcoins will maintain value long term. The ones that don't do anything, that are just there because it's fun and it's crypto and it's exciting, yeah, they won't last, right? But the ones that actually have a real world solution to a problem, those have a much better chance of staying in the game.
Interesting. That makes sense. Things I never would have really thought of from that aspect. Jack and Mari, do you guys have any additional thing? I know Kyle's kind of like the crypto king here. It seems like he's I know very in tune with the crypto space, but I don't know if you guys have any maybe even differing or other opinions on that.
Well, I think I'm not as knowledgeable as Kyle in this type of, so I don't really have like that much of a commentary, but I do know towards like the skeptical side, I feel like there's always going to be two sides of every story. And the people that are trying it are the people that are going to like start to make the database for the other people to start joining. So there's a lot of people that are still skeptical over Bitcoin, but I do know that there's also people that are creating the database for the other people to start believing in it. So it's almost like, yeah, there's going to be people that are not going to like it. There's going to be people that are going to say, well, the new technology is kind of crazy just because it's, they're used to something else. And now in order to believe in something, they must have to see more data. And I'm not sure how brand new it is. I mean, Kyle would know a lot more than I do, but I do know, it's still something kind of new that they're introducing to the world. So I feel like there needs to be more data for people to believe in it a lot more.
No, I like that a lot. I mean, it almost, going back to the point you brought up earlier. I mean, if you imagine going around driving an electric car in like 2008, 2009, they were out then. I remember my mom was looking at getting like an electric minivan, like maybe 2010. I wasn't that old. And I was like, what's that? Like, I thought it was cool, but I was also like 12 years old. And I was like, you can charge a car. How does that make any sense? And people would have thought you're crazy. There's going to be almost no practicality for it, right? I mean, there's going to be hardly any, if any, charging stations. You'd have to charge it at home. And now, not to say electric cars have taken over the traditional automobile industry, but there's certainly enough data for them to be considered practical enough. And I'm sure in the next 10 years, with all these regulations that governments are putting in place, electric cars are going to be a much more dominant market than they already are now. And it sounds like that's, I guess, is really any new concept. You need to have that database built. So I think that makes a ton of sense, honestly. Well, I don't want to spend the whole time here talking about crypto, because I wanted to kind of just get a overall rundown on your guys' opinions on it, because I mean, I'm not going to say I don't think it's nearly as hot as it was, right? Even a few months ago when, Bitcoin was at 69,000, Ethereum was over 4,000, but it's still hot enough now where a big crash, Ethereum's still hovering at what, $2,400-$2,500, Bitcoin in the 40s, right?
Yeah, high 30s. Yeah,
high 30s. Yeah, I mean, these were at zero basically a few years ago, and for all this hype to be over and the bears won, we're still thousands, tens of thousands of percent above lows. And so I mean, I think there's some real need for discussion moving into the future. Now, I do kind of want to talk about also the stock market, in not necessarily in the sense, I know small caps, OTC, it's all been relatively slow, but the overall market has been wildly volatile, probably more volatile than it's been, especially to the downside. I mean, this is the the most volatile I've seen it to the downside since pre-COVID crash. And I kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts as, you know, we've all, I mean, multiple years here, right, with trading experience. Where do you guys see all of this macro news? Because this is very similar to COVID scares that we had going on during 2020, where every day there was new information coming about this Russia-Ukraine thing, China, Taiwan. Where now, obviously, we can't predict the future, but how do you see this not only affecting the stock market overall, but small caps? Do you think there are opportunities? Are there opportunities in, I guess, areas that you know, traditionally people aren't thinking about? What do you guys kind of think about all this that's happening right now?
Go ahead, Jack or Mari.
Okay, I'll go first. Yeah, so as we know, like if you look at the SPY chart, it tanked really bad on that COVID news, and then we had the massive rebound and broke the highs, and it continued to trend all the way up without any really significant pullback. And even if you look at the chart now on a weekly or monthly, you'll see that like it still really wasn't too big of a significant pullback. And I think that a lot of people were kind of looking at some of their stocks in their portfolios, like Tesla and Amazon and Apple and all these stocks. You know, Peloton was up a ton. All these really like every stock was up, right? And I think people were waiting, right? They were waiting and thinking like, should I sell? Like, should I lock in profits, this and that? And then once the news started coming out about Russia and Ukraine and other news, and the rates started raising and all this news, and people started seeing headlines, I think a lot of people then, you know, started selling into the market. And I don't think it's not as fearful as the COVID crash and all that, but I think it was just people waiting for that headline of like, oh crap, and then everything started to sell off. And I think it was needed because the market was up so much. And now moving forward, in my opinion, like now if you ask somebody, like people are starting to get very bearish on the market. And you know, if you've looked at like growth stocks, they're down, you know, micro caps, mid caps, small caps. All these stocks are down so much over basically the last year, but it was really the large caps that stayed strong. And those are the ones that are just starting to pull back now. All the really big names are the ones that are pulling back now. So I feel like this is almost like the last wave of selling, unless, you know, more news comes out or whatever. But like, in my opinion, as we get into March with the rates coming out, like people, you know, the market always looks forward, right? The market is always looking forward, and they're all scared of the rates being hiked into March and all this stuff. But after we get through March and April, I think that we'll see some type of stabilization, and hopefully we'll start seeing some of these stocks that are really beaten down start to trend back a little. And I'll be looking at some of these, even the OTCs, like they've been trending down for 12 months. If you look at the HMBL chart, I mean, the stock was $2 like a year ago, and now it's back down to 2 cents pre-split price. Of course, right now it's at 13 cents, but that's after they did a split. So a lot of these stocks are down so much, and now seeing the large caps kind of pull back, I think it's that last wave going into, you know, once those rates get released, like, and if Russia and Ukraine figure their stuff out, I think we'll start to see some stabilization.
How about you, Kyle and Mari? Any differing opinions here?
You got anything, Mari? I'll go last if you have something.
Okay, yeah, well, kind of like Jack kind of talk about like the bigger picture, but right now kind of like what's happening and what I see is like it's obviously unstable just because there's a crisis going on. Maybe we aren't hit directly just because it's mainly based in Russia and Ukraine, but just that it still does kind of relate back to like all of us. And then it also kind of really creates kind of like that unstableness in the market. And that's, I feel like, how it's going right now, because let's say somebody maybe wouldn't want to swing a stock over the weekend just because there may be some news that come out that maybe it's not up to our control right now. It's basically just the markets doing what they're supposed to do. And they were due for a pullback anyways. So if anything, the added on news just kind of helps with the whole market downtrend. But eventually, like Jack said, it's going to find it stabilized again, just like it did last year and just like it will. But the fact that the dip got bought up so quickly and just it was a very good comeback from the market today. I mean, we don't really know what to expect because it wasn't very violent exactly because the dip always gets bought up. So I guess we'll have to see how big the crash is. But right now, I guess the news aren't really like COVID. They're not really like as bad as it was just because it's not really worldwide. It kind of just relates back on just certain areas of the world, if that makes sense.
100%. It's not a full on, I mean, a pandemic implies the entire world. We're not in some kind of world war yet. And knock on wood, we don't go into one anytime soon. That goes to you, Putin. Kyle, I'd like to hear if you got any further input here.
Yeah. So I think the whole overall market definitely affects small caps in the sense that when we are hit with some geopolitical, event or a pandemic, it creates a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty. And when things are uncertain, people really don't want to speculate. And they're only going to speculate when there's at least some level of certainty. So perfect example is like small caps have been super slow. However, because of this like Ukrainian, Russian kind of at least a hint of a starting of a war, oil has been up huge. And so this week, like 4 or 5 oil stocks have been running really, really big. IMP, I'm looking at it right now on my charts, but IMPP is up from like 50 cents and it's at $2. So it's like, I think small caps can be reignited with some hot sectors, whether it be down the line, something else happens and all of a sudden cybersecurity stocks are hot, or like back in when there were like police riots, so, police stocks were hot. So like, I think events can ignite certain sectors, irrelevant of the overall markets, whether they're uncertain or scary. But something Jack mentioned about, pulling, I kind of forgot my thought about it, but like, I forgot where I was going with it. If I get back to it, I'll remember it, but it was a really good point. I totally just like thought about it. I know something Jack said, but I totally forgot what it was.
No. I think that's something extremely important to note as well, right? Like every time there's market fear, or greed, I guess, but every time the market is volatile, a sector will prevail. Even during COVID, right? We had a bunch of COVID running names, stocks that were working on COVID data. All you had to do was put COVID in your PR, boom, to the moon. And it's very similar here. I know there's a lot of cybersecurity stocks that are kind of priming up too, because that's a big issue with, or a concern, I guess, right now that we're going to get cybersecurity attacks in the US.
Mm-hmm. I just remembered as you were saying it.
Go for it. Yeah, let's hear
it. When Jack was talking about interest rates and the market is like forward looking, right? People get uncertain and start selling off because when interest rates are higher, it's kind of like a risk off thing. Like people don't want to need to put risk on if they can earn like a higher interest rate somewhere else that's safer. Yeah. So right, the markets are selling off in anticipation of the rates getting higher or rates getting raised. Although I don't have any bets placed on this, but I kind of want to call the Fed's bluff of like, they're not going to raise rates as high as people think because they're in so much debt that raising rates would only increase their interest on their own debt. And it's like, unless they want to blow themselves up quicker than expected, like they can't raise their own rates that high. So I think the whole market's selling off of like, if they do raise rates, but I think a way it might stabilize again, if it like, again, a Fed meeting comes out and they don't raise rates. And everyone's like, wait, what? And then we kind of go back to normal because we aren't raising rates. So that's kind of like my guess how it would go down.
That'd be a savage short trap by the Fed right there, right? They just don't raise any rates at all. They're like, we're going to dip the SPY down. Psych. Yeah. You know what I mean? I completely agree with you, Kyle. I mean, this is obviously, I don't have any bets placed either. I'm not swaying anything just because there's so much uncertainty and I'm just not in the mood to bet anything on it. But, with all this global uncertainty in Russia and Ukraine, I think, and on top of the fact that it wouldn't be in their best interest to raise rates that crazy in the first place, right? I mean, they need to balance it out. They're not trying to tank the market. That's not their goal. Now, listen, I've only got about 5 minutes left with you guys here, but I do want one other, it's a little bit unrelated to what we were just talking about here, but a little more related to crypto. I probably should have, if I was smart and thinking on my toes there, probably should have transitioned from crypto to this, but this will be quick, 5 minutes or so. I want to hear you guys' thoughts on NFTs. Just overall thoughts. I know there's a ton. I can't get on Twitter without seeing NFTs. I can't do it anymore. And is there now, not the current NFTs, right? Like a lot of these are almost the quote unquote pump and dumps, but do you guys see any like actual prevalent like technology in NFTs right now that could be valuable in the future, assuming we do adopt a more meta focused, a more crypto focused digital world moving forward?
Yeah. I tried to buy my first NFT like earlier this week. It was a disaster. It didn't go well. I didn't get to buy one. So that's that. But in terms of like the actual like technology behind NFTs, yeah, I think they're huge. Right now they're just JPEGs on the internet, which again, it's like AOL Messenger back in the 1990s, to what that doesn't even exist now. So like, I think the technology behind NFTs will be big for the reason of like, if you follow any of us, Bryce, Jack, Mario, or any of us on Instagram or Twitter, we have all these scammers, tons of scammers, right? And having like a blue check mark kind of helps with that. But what NFT technology is, it's like we could potentially use that in the future to verify like our accounts. Like we're only us, no one else can be us. And so it's the same thing of like, if you want to only own a certain type of online product and you want to verify that it's only that thing, like that's what NFTs are for. That's what like that blockchain technology is for.
Yeah.
And so whether it be like an insurance policy, a legal court of law, like anything that needs a contract or a value or a necessity to verify something is original and unique and one of a kind, like NFTs are for that. And there's so many things like that I think it's going to be massive going forward. Yeah.
I love it. Mari, Jack?
For me, I mean, I like NFTs because they're so creative. And like for me, I love art. So I feel like that's basically one of the main things that kind of draws my eye to it, just because it just like draws your attention to it, just because everything is so chart based. And then there comes something that's art and just one person has it. So it's just so much different than everybody else, because you can have one, Kyle can have one, Jack can have one, but we can't all have the same one. And I just feel like that's just so special for something new. And I mean, it just kind of helps everybody just create their own thing. And I do think that it's still brand new, and going back to that same thing, something that is brand new, creating more database, then there's more demand. And I just think that's like, it's pretty good. I like it.
No, and I think what's cool too, real quick, is like everyone's like, oh, I could just like right click and save it. I mean, yeah, sure, I can go buy a fake Rolex too, and no one's gonna know the difference, but it's like not the real thing. Or even if you're going with the art aspect, right? I mean, what does it cost for a painter to paint a picture? It costs the canvas and the paint, and then it's time. I mean, it face that true value. A painting is only worth technically what the materials are, but then there's the perceived value based on different people liking. I mean, even if you want to go into the art aspect of NFTs as they are today, you could almost argue that. But then there's what Kyle mentioned too, where there's actual practical value in the tracking of it as well. Jack, any other kind of inputs there?
Yeah, so I'm not too knowledgeable on the fundamental side about the technology and this and that, but I do know that there's some NFTs that are kind of like memberships, and you can essentially invest in a company or a startup by buying their NFTs, and then you'll get like certain things and you get to play games, etc., and this and that, and you earn tokens and stuff like that. But the one aspect that I wanted to cover was the art aspect as well, because if you see, paintings, some paintings are worth what, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, like the Picasso painting up a picture, you know what I mean? And I'm sure when those came out, people looked at them and they were like, why would I pay all this money for, a painting? And it's the same kind of thing now, where I feel like now it's just paintings online, and they're even better because they come with technology and this and that. So I do think that NFTs are here to stay as long as crypto doesn't implode, which I think is pretty low odds. And we'll see what happens and see where these NFTs go. But it's very new, and it needs some time to settle and for the dust to settle and to really see what direction that they're truly going to go in, because they have so many different areas that they could expand into right now. And we'll just see like what becomes like the most popular thing with NFTs, I think.
Couldn't agree more. All right, guys. Unfortunately, I do have to let you get going here. I've got to get going myself, but I wanted to thank you guys so much for kind of joining this first episode and just kind of talking back and forth with me about some things a little bit outside of the market. I'd love to have you guys back on in the future. And seriously, thank you guys for joining. I'm going to make sure to have all your guys, for those who don't know and are watching, Twitter, Instagram handles, all that stuff for you guys. So thank you all for coming on. And I'll see you guys again soon. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Bryce.
All right. Later, guys.
Thanks.
All right, guys. And that was Jack, Kyle, and Mari. By the way, we didn't get a chance to talk about where you can find more about them, obviously on their Twitters and their Instagrams, which will be in the either in the bio or even on screen. I'm not sure yet. But also, guys, for those of you that are traders, they have a chat room here on Stocks to Trade called Breakouts and Breakdowns, BNB. Andrew, are we still running the Premier trial, or no? Is that just for that one? Yeah, we're still running the Premier trial, guys. $7, 14 days, all access to everything Stocks to Trade. Other than level 2, that's because that's not us, but you get every single chat room, all the screeners and scanners. You'll get their breakouts and breakdowns. If you're not already a part of it, go check them out. They have a great room. And that's, again, for those of you that are traders on the stock market. So that was kind of great getting to have them on here, hear their opinions on some of the stuff going on in the market right now, in the overall world economy and crypto. And that's I was very interested to hear, because I personally, right, I guess I'm in this spot with the overall market where it's like, man, I feel like we're going to war. We're about to go to World War III. And they were like, now obviously we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know if all this is probably just going to blow over and we're worrying about nothing for right now. And if that's the case, what Jack and Mari were saying is like probably exactly right. We're like a lot of stocks. Yeah, sure. The S&P 500 and whatnot, the NASDAQ and Dow Jones, like, yeah, they fell. But I mean, you look at a lot of small caps, even mid caps, and even some large caps, they're down like 80% off of highs, 90% off highs. Some of these small caps are down like 99% off of highs. I mean, HMBL, oh, what did that go to? Was that 6 or 7 or something like that? And now down at, or was that, man, there's so many OTCs, I can't remember. But I mean, that had a massive run, now down at 2 cents pre-split. A lot of these stocks already went into their bear markets, right? I mean, I'll try to find a chart and throw it up in the video. There was this massive list of a bunch of names that are down 90%, 80%, 70% off of highs. And like everyone's talking how the SPY is down from what, 470s, 480s, I think it went, now down, 440, did hit 410 pre-market yesterday. We're not in a bear market. We're not necessarily in a crash, but a lot of stocks, individual stocks already went through it. I mean, let's be honest. It's like five or six stocks that really control the S&P 500. Sure, there are 500 companies that make it up, but by market cap, by size, it's really like the Amazons, the Facebook, the Apple, the Googles, and they're still very strong now. Yeah, they're off of their highs, but I can promise you they're not 80% down off their highs. And so, I mean, yeah, there are stocks that are bringing the S&P 500 down, but the main ones that keep holding it up are still relatively strong. Not Facebook. Facebook's down quite drastically off its highs, maybe like 50% after all that stuff that happened with that last earnings call. So very interesting stuff indeed. And especially, I think I'm really interested in the crypto space moving forward, and not necessarily to trade, not even to invest, just to see what that future potential is. And I know we got to talk in the last kind of minute there, our last few minutes about NFTs, but I think that'd be a really, really interesting future episode to talk more on. I do think there's just a lot of, again, they all brought up very good points too, between the artwork, between the true technological value that will likely prevail, especially if the internet, guys, you got to remember too, right? The internet has long been a place where it's very easy to spread fake information. I mean, I can go out right now and publish an article on just about any website, or even a comment saying that well, I'll just make the example very easy. The earth is flat. Obviously, a lot of people aren't going to believe that, but if it's a more or a less researched topic, a less scientifically backed topic, you're going to have no idea. And what I'm getting at is like the technology behind the blockchain, really, which is what what NFTs represent. The technology behind that blockchain is that it is much easier to track real again, going back to the Rolex example, right, that I brought up earlier. I can go buy a fake one of those, but I don't, how am I going to know? It's actually going to take a lot more work for me to go into a dealer, into a whatever, whoever checks on the, they bring that magnifying glass up. It's going to take me a lot longer to go through that entire process to find out if that Rolex is real. Whereas in the blockchain space, is much easier to see where a transaction came from, where information came from, where et cetera came from, because it's all listed. If I go copy it, I can find its entire history from when it was made to where it is now. A little scary in a sense if you think about it, though, right? I mean, you're essentially able to track a digital product, a digital value, its lifespan. It's like you being able to look at me and be like, I can see exactly what has happened to you from when you were born to where you are now. It'd be kind of weird. It would be kind of weird. And it wouldn't surprise me if like we moved into that space in the metaverse at some point, right? Where 20, 30 years down the road and we're all living only online or very much so online, that you're able to track every little bit. I'm sure the blockchain will be very connected to the metaverse. Now here's a quick theory from me right now. This is my metaverse theory, and we'll honestly, I'll probably have a whole talk show episode dedicated to the metaverse, because everyone's like, it's a joke. It's go outside. Yeah, sure. Like, no one's saying you can't go live your life, but I mean, we're almost setting up in a way where we are more living in a more digital world than we are the real world. How often, I'm going to go onto my phone right now and see exactly how much time I've spent on my phone this week, and it's going to be high. I'm on Twitter. I'm on my daily average, guys. Let's see. My daily average is about 5 hours on my phone, and let's see exactly what that's from. Social. Yeah, social makes up a big portion of that, makes up the majority of the day. And I'm not just, a lot of times I do just like keep my phone on, leave it sitting there. But the fact of the matter is, like, I'm always going through and checking, and it's what I do for work, right? I mean, I'm up researching a lot of topics because it's easier to do that on my computer, but it would be no different if I was on my computer all day. And guess what? As traders, we are on our computers all day. A lot of support people are on their computers all day. And there's we're already in such a digital world now. Yeah, the metaverse is different because apparently you're living it, but are we not right now? Anytime that you prioritize your phone or your computer over going outside and making a real transaction, I would argue that you already are living in a digital world. And I think the metaverse is just going to be like an extension of that, right? Like, imagine, the way I see it, this is like the scenario I like to walk through. And I know I'm almost like dedicating a segment of this to the metaverse, but DoorDash, you go on to DoorDash, right? And you place your order, the food comes to you. You didn't do anything. You just sat there. Now imagine all you do, you're in the metaverse, you drive your fake car over to McDonald's and you place an order and DoorDash brings it to you, or a robot brings it to you. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to eat the real food, but you did it all online. You already did it all online on your phone. It's just like almost like a real experience doing it through the computer. It's a little different. I don't know. There's so many potential avenues for the metaverse. And I think that blockchain and, crypto and whatnot are all going to be a big part of it in the future. Hopefully we can get to a spot where we all do still go outside and get to enjoy nature. If you guys know me, you know I love the mountains. I'm a huge fan of hiking. But that's talk for another episode. So I wanted to thank you guys again, though, for joining me on my first episode of Tui Talk Show. We're going to have a lot of other really cool topics. Again, they're not necessarily going to be stock related. I don't want it to be just stock related. I want it to be everything that's kind of happening right now, like what's happening in the world right now, what's happening in different asset classes. I'd love to even talk about real estate in the future on some future episodes, because guys, like, let's be real, no one seems to know, is real estate going to crash, or is it just going to keep going or stabilize, or and there's so many different theories on it right now, but those are just some ideas for future potential episodes. Let me know down in the comments actually what you guys want to see for the next episode next week on Friday. These are going to be out every Friday. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know. Again, this is my first time doing it, just a little, not quite on the whim, but a little on the whim. Let me know anything that you'd like to see different down below too in the comments. If you liked it though, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, be sure to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, turn on your post notifications. And I think that's really all I can think of off the top of my head. Anyways, I am Bryce Toohey, your host of the Toohey Talk Show, and I will see you back here next Friday for whatever topic we have coming our way. Until then, have a great weekend, guys. See you then. We hope you guys enjoyed that last video. Thanks so much for watching and being a part of the stocks trade community. We wouldn't be here without you guys. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Our goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, but we can't do it without your help. So if you enjoy what we're putting out and want to hear more, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next video.